replace it with a service economy. The service economy now is not good enough. We're going to replace that with a gig economy where we work for Uber and things until they get their machines in, and then we won't have any jobs at all. That's really the path that we're heading down with this, and that's why I think it is so important that we have someone who has throughout his life, Donald Trump has opposed these trade deals that have been a bad deal. Let me ask you, Walt, do you think that, does it concern you that he's picked Pence as his running mate who has supported every one of these trade deals?
Yes, I do. I have a large concern about it because Pence supported TPP,
yes,
and I believe he supported NAFTA.
Yes, and CAFTA.
I view him as a traitor, and why would he choose a traitor? That's what I see Mr. Pence to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's no different than the other guys that are in D.C., whether they're Democrats or Republicans. All them rats are involved in betraying us. And by the way, I need to share a little bit more about that book. It's important to see the correlation to now. All the manufacturing and machining, was being done in England. And they were importing all the manufacturing and raw materials were being produced in England. And when all the gold and silver that the colonists and Americans had then, wooden colonists in the States then, gave all the gold and silver for the products that were coming in, then they started issuing creditary notes.
Yeah.
Just like they're doing today with the Federal Reserve.
Yeah.
So what happened? When they couldn't pay anymore, when they wouldn't accept any more creditary notes, they confiscated their land.
Yeah.
The largest landowner, David, in New York City was Cardinal Hughes of New York, the largest landlord and property owner in New York. You need to look up the draft riots and what happened in the demand for free farming equipment, money, and seed, I should say, for people who were foreign immigrants, weren't even American citizens, demanding all these things free from our government and from us. Or they're going to riot, burn the place down, and beat the hell out of everybody with clubs.
That's right.
I got the entire transcripts in that book I just mentioned. J. Wayne Lorenz wrote The Crisis, and you'll find out the full transcripts of the union leaders or organizers in New York that made big speeches and even went to the government offices with the same speeches demanding it or else.
It's interesting. You talk about this historical book, and we go back and we read what happened in history, and we find that 100 years ago, 150 years ago, 200 years ago, the principles haven't changed. So when we hear people say, well, Second Amendment, that was written at a time when we didn't really have dangerous guns. It's like baloney. Those guns were very dangerous, and they were state-of-the-art guns that they had people owning. Or they say things like, the Electoral College, that didn't apply because, people had to ride their horses to Washington to give the votes or some kind of nonsense like that. They understood the principles that were involved, and the principles have not changed. And when we go back and look at history, we see the same types of issues coming up again and again. You're just talking about what was happening about 150 years ago. Look, one of the key divisions between the North and South were on things like free trade or protectionist trade. They were on issues of crony capitalism. The Republican Party was very much in favor of crony capitalism. The South was very much opposed to the idea that they would have to subsidize an Erie Canal. In the Northeast, they said, why would we pay money to a federal government that would subsidize something like that? Where's the benefit to the people in our area? So they were very much opposed to that. But at the same time, they wanted open trade with Britain. And so you had the mercantilists who were trying to protect their markets. We see these same types of issues don't go away because they're about principles. And just because we're building different machines now, people are still the same. Human nature doesn't change. That's why the Constitution is so valuable. We had people who created the Constitution, who created our form of government, that understood human nature, which doesn't change. We have the same issues, the same power struggles, the same groups coming after each other, and we can learn a great deal from history. People have been right and wrong on both sides of this issue. It's a great thing to go back and look at that. I appreciate that, Walt. I want to make sure that everybody gets a chance to talk. Let's go to Chris in Georgia. Chris, you wanted to talk about Black Lives Matter. Go ahead.
Hello, David Knight, and thank you for your service.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for listening.
Yes, I called because I want to give my opinion of the police and Black Lives Matter.
Okay.
My take for Black Lives Matter is a comment from a Trump fan on his Facebook page, and it is, quote, "If the American police really wanted black people dead, all they have to do is stop patrolling their neighborhood and wait for them to kill themselves. Black lives only matter as long as it's not black-on-black killings." And end quote. And what Black Lives Matter do is terror-like. They advocate for the killing of cops, who for the most part protects us. And many people go along with it like it's fine. But we can agree that our police do have a problem. I agree with you that it's mainly the feds and the clinics that put these policies in place to keep the jails full, to keep them militarized, and to some extent target minorities. There are problems on both sides, but Black Lives Matter does absolutely nothing to stop it.
I agree. It doesn't offer a solution at all. It offers hatred and racism and division. As I've said many times before, look, if you firmly believe that, regardless of whether you believe that you're being unjust, I will say, put it this way. If you believe that you are being singled out as a black person, why wouldn't you try to convince white people that this is also their problem instead of pushing them away? Why wouldn't you come together with them to try to solve the problem, especially if you feel like you're being singled out? So this whole idea of Black Lives Matter, to me, understanding, and as we've seen multiple times, how it is funded by George Soros, we understand that they are trying to work against any improvement in the way the police interact with the society. They don't want to have the police functioning correctly. What they want to have is a conflict between white and black, between black and the police. They're trying to create more conflict. They're not trying to create a solution. If they wanted a solution, they would join together with people and say, let's find a common solution. Let's work together in a peaceful way. They want to promote hate, and that's what we've seen George Soros funding around the world with his color revolutions. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. And what I was about to say, it seems as if they want more violence by committing violence. And David, as a 15-year-old black teen, I'll say that Black Lives Matter is nothing more than a terrorist organization funded by George Soros. There's nothing good out of it. And I want to say this, all lives matter.
Yes, yes. And that's the whole key, isn't it? The fact that they get triggered, that they get so angry when people say, well, all lives matter. Let's all work together. Let's all figure out how we're going to live together peacefully, how we want our police to police the society here, what laws we're going to have. Do we really want to have this war on drugs, or is it creating unnecessary violence and giving organized crime a very dangerous monopoly on a very lucrative black market? Many people, just as I was talking to the retired police officer from Maryland, many people who are retired police officers, who are retired judges and prosecutors, they got into this because they see the problems with drugs. I understand there's a problem with drugs. I don't use drugs. My children don't use drugs. I don't want to use drugs. I don't want to get rid of drug prohibition so I can use drugs. I want to get rid of the problems that prohibition has caused. Prohibition is a problem. Prohibition corrupts us, creates a violent society. And that's one of the key issues of friction between the black community and the police, and it isn't necessary to have it done that way. That's why we need to come together, white and black, to address the real problems, and Soros doesn't want that to happen. Stay with us. We're going to take more of your calls here on The Alex Jones Show. I'm David Knight. Welcome back to The Alex Jones Show. We're taking your calls. I'm going to go back to the callers in just one moment. I want to remind you that we have a special on DNA Force. It's not going to last much longer. It's 25% off at InfoWarsLife.com. Of course, your purchasing of our products that we sell is the wind in our sails. It's also the fuel in our airplane as we fly the Hillary for Prison banner over Cleveland the last several days. And of course, you can also get that Hillary for Prison T-shirt. You can wave that banner yourself. But DNA Force is not going to be on sale for very much longer. It's a big discount. That's our premier product in terms of price, in terms of the ingredients that we have in it. Our Bio-PQQ compound is patented. Very difficult to get, very expensive to produce. Takes a while to produce a batch. When we sell out of it, it takes a while to replace it. And we are offering that now as a thank you to our listeners, 25% off at InfoWarsLife.com, DNA Force. I want to go back to our callers right now. Let's go to Jacob in Texas. Go ahead, Jacob.
Hey there, David.
Hey.
Long-time listener, first-time caller. I wanted to talk about Black Lives Matter as well and what I witnessed. I remember waking up, whenever
it was Baton Rouge, and then before that in Dallas. And both times what I had witnessed was white people. The first time it was an EMT guy came in and did something to eat, and he's watching. And he says, MF, those guys kill them all. And I was just. And the thing is, it was sad to see, this division. It's like what you talked about earlier, it's division. It's purposely trying to divide the country and, give support to this minority. It's really, sad.
Yes.
As somebody who's, still in high school and just, trying to get through without having to, step on any toes, so to speak. I'm not trying to, be timid or anything, but at the same time, it's just sad to see this, and then...
Well, you're just trying to get along. You don't have a chip on your shoulder because of somebody's skin color, but this is something that has been sold, and I'm sure you have seen this a lot in school. This is something that was put into our schools by the 60s radicals like Bill Ayers. They incorporated this white skin privilege and just preaching racism and division as a tool of social and political control, and it has really just gone viral in the last several years. We've seen the manifestation of it. It's gotten to a critical mass, and it really is coming through the schools and the universities. That's where I see it being injected into society in such a massive amount. But now we've seen the people who have gone through the educational propaganda, the indoctrination that they get in schools. They're now out in the media. They're in politics and political field, and they're now pushing this agenda along with the radicalized students. And that's why this has gotten so dangerous. They're not interested in correcting any problems. They simply want a war. That's what this is about.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And, that's one of the, it's the Democrats that started this, They're, against it, supporting the KKK at the beginning, and now they're supporting, saying that they were on the black side the whole time. And it's the Republicans, that's one reason why people should go and see Hillary's America, by Dinesh D'Souza. Great movie. I was lucky enough to meet the guy, ask him a question, and get his thoughts on the matter. And it was very interesting and enlightening.
And I think it's amazing. He's a great example of somebody that did not deserve to go to prison. I mean, we've never had anybody go to prison for a minor violation of campaign finance laws before. And look at all the different things that Hillary Clinton has done. Violated the religion of the national security state, created her own private network in order to do that. Arguably, she was creating a system where she had plausible deniability that she was giving away secrets. I mean, I can't understand why any idiot would do something like that. But she put her own privacy, her own criminal operation ahead of national security, and she gets away with it. And yet Dinesh D'Souza, because he does a political-based documentary that they don't like, they find some minor violation, which nobody has ever, as I said, gone to prison. They've been fined for that type of thing before. It was innocent. It wasn't conspiring with Chinese businesses in order to get millions of dollars so that, and pander influence to them like the Clintons did. It was just giving too much money, violating the limits. I think instead of the $2,500 limit, he gave something like $25,000 to a friend of his who was running for Congress, and neither one of them realized what the election laws were and didn't catch it in time or whatever. Fine. Fine him, fine her. That's the way they've always handled it in the past, but they sent him to jail. That's the kind of criminal operation. We have one standard of law for everybody else and a different one for those in power. Thank you, Jacob. When we come back, we can take more of your calls. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Alex Jones Show. I'm David Knight. We're going to go back to our callers in just one moment. We've got Elisha, Cash, Jesse, Debbie. We'll get to you and others in just a moment. Before we do, there's something I've been wanting to talk about all day, and that is an update on what happened in Nice, France. Of course, we have a story from Paul Joseph Watson today at Infowars.com, which I think is very interesting. Because the French citizens, and this is a local town council member, he says French citizens are, quote, getting ready for war, for a civil war. Many of them are finally starting to understand what this open border policy is about. That is the end game. Civil war. Bringing in a massive number of people so that they can't be assimilated in time. People who don't want to be assimilated. People who are very